And as we await to find out America's choice for their next leader, let's get the take of a former U.S. ambassador to the Asian Development Bank. Curtis Chin joins us tonight from Alexandria in Virginia in the United States. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. If you take a look at the numbers, the outcome of this U.S. presidential election is on knife edge, with Donald Trump and Joe Biden neck and neck in the key swing states.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning from here. I'm right outside Washington, and I woke up with I'm still one of those old people that get newspapers, but look at this, a nation divided. And that's really where we're at this morning. I've lived so long in the Philippines where, I learned sometimes it's not just about the voting, it's about the counting. And that's clearly where we are right now in the United States.
So tell us, Ambassador, when are we likely to find out who will be the next president of the United States, with key battleground states still to reveal who won in the count?
That's certainly the question of the hour, of the day, of the week. We're moving beyond election day to election days. Hopefully it's not election week and election month. But, I have confidence in the U.S. process that it's going to play out. I think each of the candidates are playing to their bases, playing to the media in some ways. But the reality is that the law will prevail. That's one of the great things about America and our rule of law. But with rule of law comes a lot of lawyers. And I think it's going to move into the world of lawyers as we move ahead.
And what does President Trump mean that he wants all voting to stop and he threatens to take the case to the Supreme Court? Does he want to take it to the Supreme Court because now he has the edge in terms of conservative Supreme Court judges versus the liberal judges?
Well, I think, again, we have to focus on the law and how does the process play out in the United States. What will happen is really decided also at the state level. Each state has determined the rules by which votes are counted. And that's part of the challenge to your question. In some states, like Pennsylvania, a key state, as long as those ballots that were mailed in were postmarked election day, they can still be counted, for the rest of the week. So the different states have different rules. But I think it's absolutely important to our system that we count every vote that was sent in as the state's laws dictated. I think that's what we all need to focus on as we go forward. Whether you're an investor or just a plain old citizen like me here in the United States, no one likes this uncertainty. But again, I have confidence in that U.S. system of check and balances and of the law playing out. But who knows, to your question, when we will find who will be the president come 2021.
And Ambassador, the Asian American vote is quite substantial, close to 11 million. That's about 5% of the total voting population. How critical were their votes in this presidential election?
It is really a mix, because when you think about our U.S. system, in many ways, it is a system of 50 plus one, the District of Columbia elections. And so when you think about the Asian American vote, the reality is the vast majority are in a couple states which were not key states in this, back and forth around the ballots. For a specific example, California. There's so many Asian Americans, including Filipino Americans, in California. And they may well have an impact when it comes to some of the state level elections. But when it comes to the presidential election, clearly California is in the bag for Joe Biden. So when we break down that 4%, we need to look at, to what degree they are in, let's say, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. And I think maybe a future guest today on your show will even go into the fact that if we think about Filipino Americans, also very diverse. There's a split between older Filipino Americans, younger Filipino Americans, and we think about the diversity of Asian America. We may well have soon Asian American vice president. And Indian Americans, if you look at the old data, traditionally more Democratic. Then you look at Vietnamese Americans, traditionally more Republican. So all that we need to think through when we think about that sliver of the Asian American vote, and indeed will it have a key influence in deciding this election.
Ambassador, you lived here in Asia, and you've been to the Philippines quite a number of times because you were the U.S. ambassador to the Asian Development Bank. Let's take a look at U.S.-Philippine relations, whether it's Trump or Biden. What impact will either leader have? What kind of relationship will he have with President Rodrigo Duterte?
Yeah, indeed, if it weren't for this dastardly pandemic, I'd probably be hanging out in Manila right now. Let me say, my heart goes out to really a lot of friends and people that I met firsthand on really one of my first trips, which was down to Albay to be called with the recent typhoon. But we look at what's happening there in that recovery. The U.S. is a strong partner in the Philippines, and that will continue whoever is president. We've had a series of great ambassadors. Our last ambassador there is now our ambassador to Indonesia. But that U.S. focus on the Philippines, a key friend, a key partner to the United States will only continue under whoever is president in 2021. And that's something terrific. We looked at shared values, shared interests, very robust democracies, both nations. But as we've also seen, very challenging times for both nations, whether it's the pandemic or economic recovery.
Curtis Chin, former U.S. ambassador to the Asian Development Bank, joining us from Alexandria, Virginia. Thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word.